All right, we'll call us back into session, and actually we are opening a public hearing. Purpose of the hearing is planning a spot change. Where am I at? Public hearing regarding zone ordinance and subdivision ordinance spot changes. Doesn't look like we have anybody signed up to speak or anything else, so let's go ahead and turn it over to the department. Please introduce yourself. And
thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Hal Jensen, Planning Director, Bannock County. I have with me Mike Jagoski, County Engineer, as well as Tristan Borkman, Assistant Planner. You have in your packet some spot changes that we have proposed. They have been acted upon by the council, and we are here to answer any questions and explain if you have questions regarding the reasonings why. Let me share with you a couple of items since I'm jumping ahead of you now that I opened that up. If you go to, I believe I'm assuming it's your page 30. The very first, where we have the top third of the page, 471.1 substandard lots, and that whole paragraph is lined out, being replaced with the following 471.1 standard lots and parcels. One of the items that we have constantly fought is the fact that in the previous language, it says substandard lots are defined as those created without subdivision review or the filing of a record of survey. And we have surveyors who read that particular sentence, and it has been determined through legal that it is a correct interpretation, that they can just go do a record of survey and
there you go.
File it, and there you go, and you're done. And we don't have any opportunity to keep tabs on all of these creations of lots and parcels and whatever else. And so we are in the process with the new language of 471.1, striking the language of filing of a record of survey, making sure that everything now is reviewed through our office. Part of that is that, of course, we know that we're a subdivision of the state of Idaho, and they have particular rules and regulations that they like us to follow relative to division of land. And so we're trying to get a little tighter control in our office and be more compliant with some of those rules and regulations.
So, just as that's the one that I actually was going to ask you about. So as I read through this, and it says, you know, in the struck portion, the current, as it currently says, it says substandard lots are defined as those created without subdivision review or the filing of a record of survey. So by going to the proposed language of standard lots parcels are defined as those created with review and approval through the Bannock County Planning and Development Office. Is there still a way where they just walk over to the assessor's office and split up a lot and split the parcel? Does it still create a substandard lot that's not controlled by your office then?
Only for agricultural purposes can they subdivide, and not, but it doesn't establish building rights, and it doesn't maintain or retain building rights or development rights if they do that in the ag zone.
Okay.
All other zones we would have control over.
All right, so then my question would be, because that's something that we have a tendency to run into, is where we have run into it, is it's been a division of people that go and take an ag parcel and they split a 28 or a 40-acre parcel up, and they make a 35 and a 5, and then they try and you know, they give the 5 to their buddy, and then 15 years later or 2 years later, whatever, they have sold it to somebody and they try to go in and build a house on it. We find out it was an improper subdivision. So then it would fall under this, right, that it would come in, and that standard lots parcels is defined as those. Then you would do a review through Bannock County Planning and Development Office. You'd review it, whether you may require a survey or not, and make sure the parcel then met the development standards of Bannock County ordinances, and that lot parcel maintains same legal description, or the parcel had a record of survey between those dates. So that parcel then would still be able then to go through development as long as it met the code. Correct?
Yes.
So we're not stopping it, we're actually creating a way to move it forward correctly that isn't just a record of survey that still hasn't addressed soil, you know, all the other issues of our ordinances.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, I'm tracking. Just making sure. I just wanted to walk through that to make sure I understood that, because that's still something that we run into.
Okay. The next item is going to your page 31,
Just give us the paragraph and prim number.
580.2,
Okay.
membership. Let me share with you, there's a number of things that we're running into with the council because of the change of, I mean, this originally was done in '98, and life changes, and people have greater commitments in life, et cetera. So we've gone through and looked at the Planning and Development Council requirements, changing the council from 7 members to 5. On page 32, 580.3, term of office, changing it from 4 years to 3, and well as changing members with 4 or more absences, changing shall. They may be removed. And then also on page 33, 580.8, powers and duties of the Planning and Development Council. We just changed from a paragraph with a great big giant run-on sentence, comma, 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 to numerically listing their powers and duties so that it's clearer as you read through it. Because there's times when you will read that paragraph and you'll go right over the top of one of their responsibilities without, cognizance that you did so. And it just gives it greater clarity on that paragraph.
So the only change would be to the format,
Correct?
nothing else.
Yep.
So that's what you have before you.
So while we're back there on the 4-year term to 3-year term,
Yes?
just because of, like you said, busyness, what's,
4 years is a long commitment for them to be involved, et cetera, and there've been some comments about the length of time. And with people's schedules and their commitments and things that go on in life, it's easier to recruit people when you have, or ask them if they would like to participate when it's a little shorter term.
3-year commitment
Yes.
instead of 4?
What's been your response rate for vacancies when you've had them on the board recently?
So, we haven't had that situation for a while, Commissioner. It was difficult. Originally, it was a 7-member council. We've been functioning with 5, working to get this in front for this approval. It was a struggle to get it back to 5, to be quite honest. So, I have a number of people that have made an inquiry, and I have kept those papers, knowing that we're full at this point. Going forward, we will have, within the next, I believe, 9 months to a year, we're going to have, I believe, 3 vacancies.
So,
I have
Go ahead.
oh, just on this prim on 580.8, if you have something else to.
Well, I was just gonna say, what's your feelings then about not serving more than 2 consecutive terms? That's in D.
Yeah, no, we would keep that.
Keep-
We would keep that.
Okay.
And that would be at their request.
So 580.8, as I read through all these bullet points, if you go to bullet point 7, it says to review and make decisions and recommendations concerning subdivision activity within the jurisdiction of the county. That is the only prim that has, or bullet point that has decision in it. And I'm curious to why the language of decision when everything else that the board does is a recommendation. Because all of your activities, the Board of Planning and Zoning are recommendations, because everything will in one way, shape, or form come back to the Board of Commissioners for approval or that. And I was just curious with that, because that seems kind of weird to have, that's the only one that talks of decisions as it's a final, or if it's a, again, the board acts as the representatives of the Board of Commissioners, and they're making recommendations back to us, and those recommendations may be concerning a subdivision activity and jurisdiction of the county, but not a decision. That gives me a little bit of heartburn there for a second, that they are making a specific decision concerning subdivision activity within jurisdiction of the county, because those jurisdictions, I take those as recommendations, because they're all going to come back for review.
I would default any comment from staff to Mr. Jakolowski, County Engineer, because he deals with the subdivision process more intimately.
Okay, and that's fine. It's just
Mike
to
has-
understand that, just
I
walk
would-
us through that.
I would ask Mike to address that.
So, Mike Jaglowski, Bannock County Engineer.
I asked that same question, and I could almost tell you when it was. It was like the 23rd of October, like the day after I started. As I was reading through the ordinance, I asked that question to Linda Tiger, who was once a planning and development director and worked with a couple different county engineers. And she said at that time, not the time that this was created, but at the time that at her tenure at this, is that she inquired of legal counsel, and legal counsel said that the ultimate decision comes down to the Bannock County Commissioners. And at the location or at the place in the development of the subdivision during final plat. And if there is any question with respect to the process as it goes through, residents as well as applicants as well as staff could appeal and bring a decision or a discussion or decision to the Bannock County Commissioners. But she also caveated that with, you really ought to talk to current legal counsel, which was at that time, it was previous Matt Curbs on that. And we discussed and we talked about it, and he said at the end of the whole subdivision process, if it doesn't make sense, then it is decided upon, voted upon, and signed by the Bannock County Commissioners through final plat. And if there is a problem, then the Planning and Development Council could refer or table and ask questions of the Bannock County Commissioners. And so that was my knowledge of that. And that's, I don't know if that's an answer with respect to that with decisions, but looking down through the process, we have a public hearing, and they make a decision of saying yes, approve with conditions, deny, table at that point, and then it allows the subdivision to progress on that, and then they move to the next, which is preliminary plat. But if that's something we need to change, that makes perfect sense. But that was the decision.
Because like I said, that was just the only time that I saw a specific decision made.
It is in number 9 too.
Yes,
Well, is it-
so I was going to say, this is my speculation, I
Okay.
guess, because number 9 is to review and make decisions on applications for special permits and exceptions of land use ordinances. So those would be your conditional use permits and your variances, which don't come to the commissioners unless there is an appeal.
Okay.
Those are decisions.
Okay.
So I would guess that 8 or
7.
7 is the same, where, like Mike said, the concept and the preliminary plat are decisions by the council, where the final plat is the decision that is recommended by council for decision by commissioners.
Okay.
Will you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Tristan Borquin, Assistant Planner.
And again, I was just curious with it because, like I said, it's just one of those in every, and I didn't see 9, I got hung up into 7 and I just skimmed it. But as like I said, there's only 2 times then in that entire paragraph where the decision is, everything else is recommendation to the board, recommendation of the board upon recommendation. So I was just curious to see why that was and make sure that we're following in that same logical line of thinking then.
Any other questions or comments?
Not on that.
Okay. The last item that I have, and I believe it made it to the packet, but it made it late. I don't know if you have page 402, roads, bridges, and streets.
Oh, yeah. Is that the one that talks about the,
Yes.
That's under a
Cul-de-sac?
different request.
It's under a different request, sorry. My mistake. Okay.
Also, we'll have to do this one and then that one.
Yep.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, seeing that there's, well, I guess we don't have a
What?
testimony here.
we'll close this portion of the public hearing. And do you have a motion? Is that what you're
Yeah, I was
headed
just
towards?
going to move it towards, Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve the spot corrections as presented from Planning and Zoning and upon recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. And then we have the second phase of this. So we'll open up the other public hearing and turn it over to staff.
Real quickly, this one is more directed as part of the subdivision ordinance. Mr. Chakowski may have some comment regarding this application as well, or in this conversation. Right now, we have, we are very, very close on our rewrite of the subdivision ordinance. In that process, we currently, in fact, I believe it terminates at the end of this week, our poll and questionnaire that has been sent out by our public information officer, Emma Iacone. And so when we gather all of that information relative to open space, it will allow us to then start completing. But an item that we need some help with to correct some issues, we have now adopted the highway standards and roadway development procedures for Bannock County, and all of our old documentation refers to an old Idaho highway transportation document. And so this particular ordinance change would be in the subdivision ordinance 402 roads, bridges, and streets relative to design standards, items 1, 2, and 3, and striking out one particular sentence in there. So I don't know if you've had time to review this for today's meeting, and I don't know if legal has had a chance to review this, and we
That's 402A?
402A design standards.
Okay, yeah.
So for clarification, after we had this section heard and approved for recommendation to you by council, we realized that because there are design deviations allowed for sections 402, 403, and 404 of the subdivision ordinance when in an open space design subdivision. And some of those are regarding design standards that are now in the road and bridge policy manual, but some of them are referring to lots and blocks that are still within the subdivision ordinance. So we've had to make further changes to that section since council has heard it. So that's what Hal's referring to, is that might not be in your packet because we realized we had a little bit of a hole in that section after council heard it.
So let's talk about variations just for a minute, because that's in that 402 section. When would be a variation? What can you give me an example of, like, what we're running into where design variation would need to be granted?
Let's say, for instance, someone comes to us and they would like to do an alternate pavement profile as opposed to what's published in.
So as long as it's an engineer specs.
Or if we have a subdivision that, because of the actual nature and the features of the ground, will only allow one access in. And ordinance states that they need to provide a secondary means of access. But because of particular features or the way that the land lays out, it's...
Would this also fall under, for, as you said, profile, pavement profile or road profile? You have a area that has high compaction rate, that has really good fill, that you're not required, instead of being on like a sand or a loom or a lust where you could go in, there's no reason to excavate and put, 2 feet of sub base, and that would give the discretion then to the engineer and planning zone director, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, there's a number of different things.
That makes sense then, because there's some things that were just brought as we did that.
And so, may I add to that? The standards are built as I don't want to say guidelines, but built as limits, right? And if you're able to hit those limits with, as Hal was saying, less of a road profile, then our question becomes demonstrated, and then the applicant demonstrates that, yes, this can be obtained with the smaller road profile. Same thing with respect to drainage swales, for stormwater. If you have a site condition that's a little bit different than what we recommend in our standards as the road section on there for drainage swales, then we ask them, show us that this can percolate more than what our worst case scenario that we could find in the county. And so then they demonstrate it and they can adjust their drainage swales. So it's, if you think about it, is that this is put together more as limits. You need to have at least this, or you need to have not more than that. But if you can obtain that if you can obtain that with less material, then you just need to show us. And then we have an opportunity to look at it and then approve it.
Okay.
So on this page, 27, it says 27 of 41.
Yep.
The cul-de-sac limited in length and then the radius?
Correct.
Is there someplace else that's covered, or?
Yes.
That is covered in the standards,
Okay.
specifically in the standards.
With Pidcock's, there was concerns about the radius wasn't big enough, and I just,
Mm-hmm.
So originally, we submitted pages in your packet, would have been pages 45 and 46 relative to this, and it has items that are being added and items that are being struck. And we just rewrote it as it will appear with greater clarity once it gets in items 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Okay?
The other one is, you had in this packet, it also talks about, maybe this is a different section. Let's see, 302B. There was strikeout, and was that already covered?
Community impact analysis?
Yes. In the subdivision analysis, is that part of the last one? Just in this, I think our packet got a little discombobulated.
That is correct. It would be your page 42.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, okay. So this would all be part of the subdivision? Okay. I'm just, yeah, it just looks like the way it's gotten put in there, it just is a little different. Okay.
And just, Commissioner Tubby, when we have had previous conversations about spot changes, you have always requested that it is a spot change that is anticipated to be incorporated into the new.
Yes.
As we go through that process, these are items that we are trying to correct until the new subdivision ordinance comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these will be integrated and some of them
Will
will
be,
no longer
yep.
even be applicable. So just wanted to make you aware of that.
That's fine. So we're getting into the figurative part where Commissioner Moser always says, don't pave the road, just dig it up and do a sewer line. Well, let's not rewrite a complete ordinance just to rewrite the complete ordinance next time. So if we, because the least amount of changes on the public is usually the best, so I do agree.
It will be a shock to most people when they get a new subdivision ordinance.
Yeah, it will. But when they actually go through it, hopefully if there's not major drastic changes and it's just process and procedure.
the thing I look out for the most is, I appreciate who we have in office or in your positions right now. I don't want to put something out there that is so gray area that it causes problems down the road.
Yep.
That said, with respect to everyone in my office, when we converse about the language, we also take it to legal for their review. And one of the items that occurs, a little tangent, in the design professions is that a lot of people design specifically for a person, when in reality it is intended to be a used facilities for multiple people, meaning they come and they go and they come and they go, and you need to make it as functional as you can. I try to iterate to all of the people in our office that we're not custom writing language as we would like to see it applied. We want to see clarity and conciseness so that the people that come after us in the future don't have to try to figure out what were they thinking, why did they do this.
Yep.
Love it.
Yep.
Totally agree.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know what this one's specifically
Do you want to
titled.
kick this one back to the board for review and approval? Because you said they haven't seen the changes that you made.
And they don't need to.
They don't need to?
They have seen it, they just haven't seen it structured in that paragraph form that we presented to you.
Did you want to
Unless
see
Brian-
it structured before making a decision?
No, the content's the same.
Nothing changed in with
Yeah.
the contents that the board approved or recommended
That the
sorry,
council reviewed,
that the council, yeah.
to the best of my knowledge, yes.
So this would be a point of clarification then. So this would be specifically changes to section of ordinance 402 Which ones are we changing in this motion? We're gonna change,
You know what, Commissioner Tubby, if I may, I think just for consistency's sake, if you guys would prepare it the way you want us to approve it, then we'll just approve it when
That is-
when
yes.
we get to that. Is that where you were going? or-
yeah, I was just gonna have them, just take these ones that we just met on here. I just wanted to enumerate them specifically for this open meeting, and then if they can prepare it, we can bring it back up at our next convenience.
Perfect.
So my question, would we have to have another public hearing?
No, not in that, since we've
Okay.
already had
Yeah.
it here, but if there were any changes to the
That's-
content,
Okay.
we would have to actually
That's-
send it back
yeah,
to
I
the
don't want
board.
that.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to have to.
Push it down the road
Yeah.
another.
So in this section, we covered then 402A, changes that were made were indicated in, let me get back to it.
You may want to refer to the memorandum. That's on your page 40. That has those enumerated.
Yeah, Mike Digital, okay. Yep, memorandum. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would move that the referenced ordinances changing on memorandum from Mr. Michael Jablowski, County Engineer, dated January 3, 2022, that is part of the packet, is indicated that those sections be prepared for final signature for change and be presented at the earliest convenience of the board.
I think that's fair.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Mike. You just made it a lot easier on me.
Well, if it wasn't me, I'm sure it was going to be Tristan. So I thought I better speak up and get heard.
All right,
Sorry.
we